Hey everyone. So, let's talk about AI. It's everywhere, right? But all the jargon can feel a little overwhelming. Today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. I'm going to give you a super clear, simple guide to the AI concepts you actually need to know. You ever feel like you're just lost in this jungle of AI acronyms? You hear stuff like LLMs, Gen AI, agentic AI, and it's just a lot. But here's the good news. You absolutely do not need a computer science degree to understand this stuff. All you need is the right map, and that's exactly what we're going to draw out together today. And you know what that map is built on? A really simple but super powerful idea. Analogies. Just think of an analogy as a mental shortcut, right? It builds a bridge from something that seems really complex and new to something you already get, something you already understand. Honestly, it's the best tool we've got to make sense of this crazy, fast-moving world. Okay, so let's start by tackling the challenge head-on, this jargon jungle. I really think the biggest barrier to understanding AI, it's not the tech itself. Nope, it's the way we talk about it. It's really just a communication problem. Look, at the end of the day, jargon is just a shortcut. And don't get me wrong, it's super useful when experts are talking to each other. I mean, you definitely want your surgeon to use precise terms, not spend 5 minutes explaining what a scalpel is. But the problem is when that special language gets out into the real world. It builds this wall of confusion. And our whole goal today, we're going to tear that wall right down. So how are we going to do that? With our secret weapon. Analogies. They are the absolute perfect tool for this job. They let us take some abstract, techie idea and connect it to a real-world experience that, we all just get. So, what's the recipe for a great analogy? It's actually a really simple four-step deal. First, you start with a relatable experience, a story that pretty much everyone understands. Then, you connect that story to the techie concept we're trying to figure out. Step 3, you show how the results, the outcomes, are basically the same. And then boom, you draw that final connection, and that's when you get that aha moment. Okay, let's try one out right now. You remember the great toilet paper rush of 2020, right? That sudden, chaotic surge of demand that just completely overwhelmed the stores? Well, that's a DDoS attack. That's it. In a nutshell, it's a massive rush of digital requests that just floods a system until it shuts down. See? Simple? That's the power of a good analogy. All right, so now that we've got our guide, let's actually put it to work. We're going to start by breaking down the two main flavors of AI that you're going to run into pretty much everywhere these days: predictive AI and generative AI. And the difference between them is actually pretty simple, but it is so important. On one hand, you have predictive AI. Think of it like a weather forecaster. It looks at all the data from the past to predict what's probably going to happen next. Its whole job is to interpret. But then, on the other hand, you've got generative AI. This one is the artist, the creator. It uses everything it's learned to make something totally new. Its goal is to create. And here's the crazy part. You use both of these every single day, probably without even thinking about it. Predictive AI? That's Netflix suggesting your next binge watch, or your bank flagging a weird charge on your card. Generative AI? Well, that's ChatGPT writing an email for you, or Midjourney creating some incredible image from a text prompt, or GitHub Copilot helping a coder write software. So yeah, one predicts, the other creates. Simple as that. Okay, so we get what these two types of AI do. But how? How do they get so smart in the first place? Well, to figure that out, we've got to pop the hood and take a look at how they actually learn. And you guessed it, we've got the perfect analogy for this: making a cup of coffee. I know, it sounds almost too simple, but stick with me. The process has two absolutely critical parts that line up perfectly with how an AI gets trained. First things first, you've got your training data. This is just all the information, we're talking text, images, code, numbers, you name it, that we feed into the AI system to teach it about the world. So in our coffee analogy, the training data, that's your coffee beans. And just like with coffee, the quality of those beans is everything. It is the single most important part of the whole process. If you start with bad, stale, cheap beans, there is no way you're ending up with a good cup of coffee. It's just not going to happen. All right, the second key ingredient here is the training process. This is the how. In our coffee world, this is your brewing method. Are you doing a pour over, a French press? For AI, these are the algorithms and methods it uses to actually learn from all that data we fed it. So back to the coffee shop. You could have the absolute best, most expensive, single origin coffee beans on the planet.
But if your brewing process is all wrong, if the water is too hot or the grind is off, you're still going to get a terrible cup of coffee. The point is, both parts have to be right, the beans and the brew method, the data and the process.
So here's the golden rule, the most important thing to remember about AI training. The quality of an AI's output is a direct mirror of its input. It's that simple. If you feed it bad data, you're going to get bad results, mistakes, biases, just plain unreliable answers. It all boils down to that one classic phrase you hear in computer science all the time: garbage in, garbage out.
Okay, let's pivot and look at the future, at where all of this is heading, because we're seeing this huge evolution right now, a shift from AI as just a helpful assistant to something way, way more powerful, agentic AI. And the best way to think about these is not as tools, but as digital teammates.
And this right here really illustrates the massive leap we're talking about. On one side, you have an AI copilot. It's there to augment your work. It assists you, it makes recommendations, but you're still the one in charge. On the other side, you have agentic AI. This is different. This can work autonomously. It can make its own decisions and take action to get a job done, with way less human oversight. Let's use an analogy for this one too. An AI copilot. It's like the copilot on an airplane, right? They're offering up really important information, they're making recommendations, but the human pilot, that's you, is always the one with their hands on the controls, making the final call.
But in agentic AI, oh, that is a whole different ballgame. Let's imagine one is managing inventory for a business. It doesn't just send you an alert saying, hey, stock is low. No. It detects the low stock. It autonomously reorders the supplies. It even negotiates with vendors to get the best price, and then it adjusts the delivery time based on recent sales. It does the whole thing, all without you having to lift a finger.
So the big takeaway here is that we're talking about a fundamental shift. We're moving from AI being just a tool to AI being a teammate. We're going from using a tool to collaborating with a partner.
And that brings us to a really fascinating final question. Now that AI can not only suggest things, but actually do things, the possibilities are just staggering. So I want you to think about this for a second. If you got your very first digital teammate tomorrow, what would be the first big, complicated, annoying task you would hand over? What problem would you just ask it to solve for you? Because the